In this video, I would like to provide a little bit of insight to some commentary that we recently received from Mr. Noam Chomsky as he was discussing the effects and potential outcomes of the war in Ukraine involving Russia and NATO, of course, as well as the current ongoing conflict with China and Taiwan. But something that I want to, or China, Taiwan, and the US, but something that I would like to focus on is something that he said towards the end of this video, that he says that the war that Russia is fighting in Ukraine is much more humane than the actions of the US and the UK and Iraq or overall in the Middle East in general. Take a look at the video firstly, and then we'll get into it.
Anyone who has a gray cell functioning should be worried about the risk of nuclear war. That's why the doomsday clock was set to 90 seconds to midnight. There are many possible scenarios that could lead to nuclear war, both in Ukraine and also in China, with regard to China. For example, Ukraine, let's imagine that the prognostications of U.S. political leaders are correct. Suppose it turns out that Ukraine can come close to defeating Russia. Is Putin just going to pack up his bags and say, well, that was nice, I'll go home to oblivion? Or will he raise the attack against Ukraine? And notice, let me ask you a simple question. When the United States and Britain were smashing Baghdad to pieces, did any foreign leaders go to visit Baghdad? No, because when the U.S. and Britain go to war, they go for the jugular. They destroy everything: communications, transportation, energy, shock and awe, anything that makes society function. That hasn't happened in Ukraine. Undoubtedly, Russia could do it, presumably with conventional weapons. Could make Kiev as unlivable as Baghdad was. Could move into attacking supply lines in western Ukraine. Could be a confrontation with NATO. Then what happens? Well, just another step up the escalation ladder. And once you start on that, nobody knows where it leads. So to fail to be concerned about nuclear war is to be out of your mind.
Are you implying that Russia is fighting more humanely than the US and UK were in Iraq?
I'm not implying it, it's obvious.
Now, hopefully, you were able to thoroughly digest what Mr. Chomsky just said, and in elaborating on the point that he made about the war that Russia is fighting in Ukraine being more humane than the wars that the U.S. fights, I would like to use a report from Brown University, prestigious quote unquote university here in the US. And they basically crafted this report titled The Cost of War. And it's from the Watson Institute, and it was these scholars that basically came up with many important, it's an important report, but they came up with very important statistics and numbers for us that we can look at and kind of depict a very accurate picture of what the death tolls and all of the different effects and outcomes of the US's and their allies' wars on other countries, as well as the entire war on terror. So let's get into this. So I'll read you just a little bit of the summary here. It's a 39-page report. I'll try to link it down below if you're really interested in taking a look at it. I recommend you do. It's very insightful. But just this is a little bit of the summary. So the total death toll in the post 9/11 war zones of Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, Syria, and Yemen could be at least 4.5 to 4.6 million and counting. Due to the precise mortality figure remains unknown. some of these people were killed in the fighting, but far more, especially children, have been killed by the reverberating effects of the war, such as the spread of disease. These latter indirect deaths, estimated at 3.6, 3.7 million, and related health problems have resulted from the post 9/11 wars, destruction of economies, public services, and the environment. Indirect deaths grow in scale over time. Though in 2021, the United States withdrew from military forces from Afghanistan, officially ending a war that began with its invasion 20 years prior. Today, Afghans are suffering and dying from war related causes at higher rates than ever. This report examines the devastating toll of war on human health. Whoever the combatant, whatever the compounding factor, and the most violent conflicts in which the U.S. government has been engaged in the name of counterterrorism since September 2001, including in the above countries as well as Libya and Somalia. I think I will stop there. So that was quite a bit to digest, but allow me to throw out a couple more statistics from this report. So obviously, I just gave the numbers for the human death toll, whether that be directly or indirectly. Get this. So the amount of people that have been displaced post 9/11 and the wars on counterterrorism and what have you, they can't give you a precise number, but they say anywhere in between 38 million, and that's being modest, and 60 million people have been displaced. And they go through and give you the amount of people, and these are millions of people, by the way, obviously. They go through, if you look at this report, they go through Afghanistan, Iraq, in different places, and how many people in these specific places, the estimates of people that have been displaced. And I'm giving you all of this information and all these statistics to say that this is the effect of the incredibly murderous and destructive U.S. empire and its allies at work. And it's funny because you don't think about it like that when you're on the inside of the walls. You know, me myself, I am indeed an American, but I like to think that you know I see things honestly. But other people that aren't so immersed in these things, that don't have no clue that this, such a report exists, that aren't so lucky to know of people like Noam Chomsky, to hear him say things like what we saw him say in that video. They think that the U.S., and they believe what the politicians say and what their mainstream media tells them, that they go on and send troops to different places around the world for freedom and democracy and to uphold liberty. It's not to extract their natural resources and to destroy them and to wipe them off the face of the earth, like what was done with Libya and Baghdad, as Chomsky pointed out in that video. And it's, obviously incredibly hypocritical for U.S. leaders to, cry over what's happening in Ukraine, and may the best, be with them. But you decimate entire places, and then you want to pick and choose where, well, Russia can't act in this way, even though we've pushed up to their borders and been, incredibly aggressive towards them, which basically led us up to this point. But all of the different atrocities that we've committed can be swept under the rug, even with reports like this that condemn the American empire to the utmost. But this is just another version of a take on the reprehensible nature of the U.S. military and the destruction that it has caused over the course of so many years. I mean, these statistics are incredible. I mean, just the scope of the destruction and the carnage that's been left behind from these military operations. It really is stunning, and it makes you think. But these sorts of things are hidden. These reports, they're hidden from the American people at large. Like I said, they have no idea that these things are occurring. They genuinely believe, most people I think believe, and I don't think it's that far fetched to even think that. Most people genuinely do believe that when the U.S. sends troops, over across the world for whatever reason, they're doing it for justice, and we're always in the right, and everything we do is for the benefit of something or some people. But what I'm trying to stress to you in this video is that that is not indeed the case. And so when you see things about how Vladimir Putin is, the second coming of Hitler, he's Hitlerian, and anybody associated with him or has a differing opinion on the war in Ukraine, they're an agent of the Kremlin. Question those things greatly, and come back to reports like these and really understand what we're up against here as it pertains to the propaganda machine and the manufacturing of consent, and where they are trapping, or at least trying to trap us, in terms of the realm of debate, and where the boundaries in which they would like to keep us when it comes to talking about these things, such as the proxy war that they're currently having in Ukraine. And by the way, before I forget, this is another statistic from that report or study from those scholars, but this is something that we've known for a very long time. $8 trillion, over $8 trillion, they've thrown away at the war on terror. And what do we have to show for it? Absolutely nothing.